Okay, jump right in. It's actually I've been wanting to talk to this guy for ages. I met him at the march in Canberra, but I was told by this Hungarian doctor that in times of struggle, um, leaders pop up from the most unexpected places, and some of those leaders have the best eyebrows in Australia.
Apparently, these are imported from my father. How are you, Michael?
I'm good. Now, before we get going, I just I'd like to. I know you have something to talk about. I wanted to bring you on to discuss what you're talking about, the minor parties attacking each other for preferences. But before we go there, could I get to know you a bit more? Because I've been watching you for a long time, and your head amazes me. So,
Oh,
can I ask, where are you from? How did you get to suddenly become the Joel Jammal that we all know?
sure. Well, I went to a school around the corner called the King School. It was. I'm so thankful I was able to attend there and get a lot of the public speaking skills, which I was able to get. My parents were very strong advocates of encouraging people to become the best individuals they could, so they could become leaders in society. My dad used to always say, Joel, people are going to we're going to need leaders in the future. That's why you need to be able to do this and this and this. And I just sort of remembered that. And so I sort of slowly built up these skills through school and through university and through Bible studies, which my dad ran. And, I was plodding along this construction and property development career path for about 9 years when the government had other plans. I was one of the canaries in the coal mine that was basically hit first by the restrictions in COVID. It wasn't the COVID mandates; it was the lockdowns, the first round of lockdowns, and I ended up losing my job in the very first round of lockdowns, where they basically ended up targeting everyone. And so I lost my job, which ended up me getting made redundant. I was an assistant development manager for a company in Western Sydney. And and then I ended up basically saying, you know what, if you're going to take my job, I'm going to take your job in the media because you stoked the fear, and I'm going to help get people elected in Parliament that essentially ended up making the decisions in Parliament, and both on a state level and a federal level. And so, long story short, this has always been a hobby, following politics. I've been following it in America and in the UK since I left school, 2016. And it's been very interesting to learn all the lessons and then translate that into Australia. Australia is a piece of cake. The way our system works is so easy. I was listening to myself teach people about the American system maybe a little over a year ago, early last year, about how the electoral college works. A lot more complicated. Australia, it's a piece of cake. And so when it came to it, it was a seamless sort of transition to help people understand what the hell's going on.
Can we go back to where you lost your job? Even though you'd been learning politics, were you surprised that Australia reached this point where suddenly they were kicking people out of work? Or was your father? Or were you prepared for it? Because, I mean, it's across the country, you know?
I was... My dad used to always say, and I say used to because he passed away about 5 weeks into me starting the show. But I used to remember him. I used to remember him saying that, it's a lot worse off in Melbourne than Sydney. And I remember him always basically saying our society's just collapsed to the point of we don't know where our values are. We don't know where we come from. We don't know where we're going. We don't have a narrative anymore. And unfortunately, people, they survive off narrative. They survive off hope. And so when it comes to the actual, what does that translate to? I've sort of known that since 2011, that this was we're in for a bad one, essentially. And we're in for some pain. I didn't know when it would hit, though. In 2017, we saw
Can I just stop you there? What was it about 2011?
Well, that was when my dad first started the Sydney Institute for Christian Studies. He'd lost his parents within 6 months of each other, And one of his biggest regrets with some of his other relatives was that he didn't preach to them before they died. He did preach to his parents, and they were believers. His grandfather was just a Christian believer. But the point of me bringing up 2011 was that it was when he first started talking publicly about where society's going and how it has a real spiritual and storytelling aspect to it. And that's what I've seen everywhere. No one knows where they're going. No one knows where they've come from. I think that's why we see, a great cross section of immigrants from overseas that have a very strong understanding. They know who they are. They know what crap their parents went through, and they know exactly what they want. And they were the first people blowing the whistle on what they saw from the Victorian government, from the New South Wales government, all over Australia. And
people from Chile and Argentina, they know it. Even Vietnamese were approaching me going, "This is communism. This is Marxism. This is what they're seeing." Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, but look, essentially, we sort of knew this was going to happen. That all the preconditions were there. But wow, did it blow up? Oh my gosh, 2020 was wild. 2021, I almost threw up. I almost got locked up. And then 2022, everything sort of disappears, and they're like, "Oh, it's election time. Let's call half time to make sure that we can, as Topher Field would say, work out who's going to punch us in the face for the next 3 years."
Can I go back for a sec? So I was in Sydney, so I've been through all those major moments there, from the shrine to whatever. But it was actually Sydney that made me walk away from my life.
Wow.
So you say, and the reason was segregation. Now, I was brought up a Christian. I moved away from my faith, but I'm fully back now. Not so much with my structured religion, but in belief. And the moment that got me was when I can never say her name, the platypus woman, the premier that quit.
Gladys.
Gladys
Berejiklian, yes.
was celebrating bringing in segregation.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe I was hearing the word in my country. I grew up with the Mandela thing. We knew. My first speech at the shrine was segregation and apartheid is cancer on the culture's soul. And it's and I couldn't believe it. And that's when I thought, no, I can't do this. We're not. I had a theatre company there saying we're not performing segregated audiences. Not now, not ever. And that was it. It was cancelled. But that was Sydney. And then I heard it from the New Zealand Prime Minister. She's celebrating it, and they're celebrating it. It is like I did a little thing where it said, "Our souls have a compass. You always know where right and wrong is. Some people call it God, some people call it the light, but you know where it is." And these people were celebrating apartheid, like saying, "No, right God is this way." And you're going, no, it's absolutely, utterly wrong on all levels. And so it was Sydney that actually started my journey more than Melbourne. But,
that's amazing.
But can I talk about your almost getting arrested? What happened there?
Oh, that's a long story, and I'm still in the courts with that. I smile because it's ridiculous. I wish I could tell you the full details, but it's just ridiculous how it happened. I wasn't meant to be given a speech. I wasn't meant to be a protester. I was meant to be a journalist covering the protest. I wear 3 different caps since I started what I've been doing. I'm a journalist, so I report what I see. I don't become the story. I'm a political commentator where I tell people my opinion on stuff online. I'm a political activist. I'm a political activist where I educate people on the best way to get the political outcomes they want. Now, I never wear 2 of those caps at the same time. I'm always only ever wearing one. Now, at that particular protest, there was a different story. I was wearing the journalist cap, reporting what I'm seeing and, going about and telling people what's going on. And then the police come up to me when we're at the start of the protest, and it's a long story, but they came up to me because no one was listening to them. They were trying to direct people to town hall. There were no organizers there. It wasn't a permitted protest, despite the fact a lot of people thought it was. And, the police, no one was listening to them. They're trying to control the crowd. And so they tried to tell the crowd to do something, and they didn't. And then I tried doing it, and they listened, because obviously a lot of people from Sydney had seen my shows in the past and my segments, because, I do a lot of commentary and a lot of letting people know what's going on. And then they tried to do it again. people said, no, F you. And then I tried doing it because what they were saying made sense. It's like, slow down, clump, so we can clump up. And I tried doing it, and then they listened. And then the officer comes up to me and he says, all right, turn your camera off. And I was like, okay, I'll turn my camera off. And he says, okay, we need someone to work with today. We've got a situation on our hands. We need 1 point of reference. Can you be that person today? And he said, I'm still going to give you a fine, but I'm just like, okay, look, I came here prepared to get a fine either way, but we do have a situation on our hands. I'm happy to work with you. I mean, I don't really have a choice here. We've got 50,000 people in the city. The police were not in control. There was 100 to 200 police officers. They were not in control. And so I was just like, look, we've got a situation on our hands. People will get hurt if we don't make sure we manage this amount of people going through the city. And so we ended up, I said, look, I'll help you get them to town hall, and then that's it. And I said, look, I'd appreciate not getting a fine though. I'm a journalist. Remember, I'm a journalist here. I'm meant to be covering what's going on, not freaking leading the start of the protest to town hall. Anyway, long story short, we get to town hall. I don't know where the guy from police command goes, but he's nowhere to be found. The police get there. People are all getting agitated because they're like, they want to keep marching. They want to keep going through the city, despite the fact that it was planned to stop the town hall. And I've got all this on audio and film. I went up to the police line, some of the pleb police officers, not police command, and I just said, they're going to keep punching on the line. You've got to give them something to look at. Otherwise, they're going to keep marching through and keep punching on. And they weren't listening. And I said, look, I need to speak to police command. Where's that guy? Where's the baldy from police command? And anyway, long story short, I said, look, I was pleading with the police command. I said, God, look, people are getting hurt. People had already been hurt in the past, both officers and people. I don't care who instigated it, but we need to, the people have come here because they have a message to articulate. If you don't let them articulate that message, then this is going to continue on. They're going to keep going through the city, and who knows what's going to happen. Maybe we'll get a fatality. Anyway, he goes back, he goes on the phone, and then, talks to his superiors. And then he comes back, he hands me a red microphone. It doesn't quite work. And then someone from the crowd hands me a white microphone, but the police endorsed me speaking. And then I went out there and I was like, okay, I've got to summarize the problems of the audience in about 3 to 5 minutes. And it's got to be something they all agree with and to the point where they're ready to go home right after, essentially. And so I just spoke. I said, look, I think this is why people are pissed off. I mean, this is why I'm pissed off. And you got a bit of an injection of why I was there. I'd lost my job in the construction industry. My dad wasn't able to get the treatment that we would have liked because of the lockdowns. And a lot of people were there because of the construction mandates, because they were mandating the jab for the construction industry. So there were a lot of very angry tradesmen there, including some of my relatives. And so I gave that speech. I got down, and a lot of people were like, well, now what? Because what happened was there was another guy that got up and spoke, and he ended up antagonizing the police, and the police sent him down. And then I went up to the police again, and I said, look, we've got to get the people out of here. And I spoke with Romeo Georges, and we ended up sending them back to Victoria Park, and then we went home for the day. We came, we made our point, and we left. And I didn't see the violence instigated by the people. Then what happened was crazy. Then what happened was, they called us 3,500 buffheads. They didn't see 3,500, bricklayers. They saw 3,500 buffheads. It was not 3,500. It was 50,000. I have the photos to prove it. I have the 360 photos to prove it. A lot of them I haven't released because I don't want people still, including myself, have our court cases going on right now. I'm up for $30,000 to $50,000 in legal fees at this point in time, and I've never asked anyone in the audience to help me with that. And
I'm doing the same for the Shine.
I just don't have it in me. Like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I chose to be at that protest. I chose to do what I did that day. And for me there are a lot of battlers that go to these protests. They don't have the reach that I have. They don't have the political contacts they have. I'd feel bad to be like, oh yeah, I can go to my audience and then, be like, oh yeah, guys, can you all throw $1 in each? and then I can pay my legal fees. I was like, no, that was my, you know, I don't know. Maybe I've got a problem with asking people for money with that particular thing. But anyway, so long story short, the court case is still going on. I can't go into all the specific details, but that was essentially how the day played out. And then the police rock up the next night at 9 p.m. on my dad's birthday, and they basically served me with saying I incited people to commit violence. They cited my speech as well while I was on the steps, despite the fact the police handed me the mic. And they also got me for leaving my LGA, which I was allowed to do because I'm a journalist. I was there to cover it. And also congregating in groups larger than, I don't know, I think it was 3 or 5. And so so they're trying to get my scalp, basically. They're trying to shave these eyebrows off, but I don't want them to. And you know what, like, come at me, like, guys, throw me in jail. I mean, do your worst. It'll just become a Mandela moment, you know. It doesn't.
Let's just to interrupt. First off, with the thing about money, I think the interesting thing there is realizing you're not alone. You're actually part of a tribe, because we've got. We're just about to start announce a fund that we're promoting. We're not organizing the fund. I didn't want to have the fund associated with Cafe Lockdown, but we're marketing it to back Dr. Hobart and maybe another Dr. Boris, doctors who are tackling their deregistration or suspension with APRA. And what I'm saying is it's not fair that these guys are having to fund it themselves, because we all benefit from the fight. If Dr. Oosterhuis has just won his case, if they get to live up to the Hippocratic Oath, we are all the beneficiaries of that. So, and the same with you. I mean, people stand up. You stood up. You got to the front. It's a part of a community now. And that's what we are. And we're in Melbourne. I don't know about in Sydney, but Melbourne and around Australia, because I've been traveling everywhere. The word that I hear used all the time is tribe. They go, we're part of a tribe now. It's just this growing tribe. And it's not just unvaccinated. It's unvaccinated, one vaccination, 2 vaccinations, even triple vaccinations. They don't want to go forward. They're coming back looking. I actually think that's the way forward, is that the counterculture will rise of people go, I don't want to go the direction of tyranny. We want to go this way, even though we don't know where we're going. We know we're on the right path. So I think that's the thing with your legal fees. I know, because the government has a huge well of money and lots of barristers, and you have some money and great eyebrows and a great smile and great articulation, but
yeah,
it helps. Anyway, I'm just going to back one more thing before you go on.
Sure.
Can I ask, how have you changed personally from the person who was working in construction to the person you are now?
Probably a lot better on camera. You can see some of my earlier segments. I was a bit rusty. I've probably fallen more into my own style as well. I used to think when I started doing these segments that I should be more like a news presenter. But the more I got into it, the better segments I found were the ones where I actually showed my personality. And you see a lot of sarcasm come out, and me just laughing at stupid stuff sometimes. But sometimes I felt that those segments are doing a lot better. So that's probably some ways that I've changed. I've probably changed in a lot of ways in terms of my understanding of other people, and how a lot of people just don't have an understanding of how their country works. But yeah, wow, it's hard to say. I mean, when I started the show,
I'm only asking on a thing like, you've literally been at the forefront of a war. We have this strange sort of war going on, and you've been in it. You've heard the sad stories. You've been affected by the police yourself. You've taken this all in you. And in construction, you wouldn't have had that. So that's what I'm interested in, how basically you've changed from spending a few years in the trench, or a year at least in the trench.
Yeah, well, some might say it ages you. I can't lie that it's been absolutely heartbreaking to read the stories in my DMs and the things people will share with me, and it's just a big responsibility. It really is. I wouldn't say I'm holding. At times, you feel like you're holding the weight of the world on your shoulders, but because there's a lot of people in this movement doing a very good job. But when you read a lot of the stories in your DMs, you you feel a great deal of responsibility to deliver a win. That's what I tell people when I see them in person. I just want to give you a win. I just want you to, these people have been blindfolded. They've been attacked. They don't know who's attacking them. They don't know how to fight back. They don't know why they're attacking them. And I'm just trying to take that blindfold off, tell them this is how you can punch back. And I just want to deliver them a win. It's as simple as that. And so, I probably changed a lot on a personal level, being the man of the house since my dad passed 5 weeks into the show. It's obviously been different.
Very tough.
Yeah, it has been tough, more specifically for my mum, because it was her partner for life, and he died young, in my opinion. I think 56, and
I'm 56.
Yeah,
That's young, man.
Yeah, well, there you
Sorry,
go.
but that's really young.
It is young, and it's a shame how he went. It was.
I don't look young.
No,
but I feel young. You don't have to agree with that. You have to agree with that. 56 is really young.
Yeah, it is. But anyway,
Okay.
Look, I've seen a lot of changes in myself and the people around me from being in the trenches. I'm probably, I've got a fresh set of eyes when it comes to the cops. I'm a lot more familiar with them now. I mean, they came to my house at least 8 times, but I'm also a lot more familiar with them in the way that I know a lot of them that resigned. So it's such a strange. They're a mixed bag. They're a big mixed bag, and it's been so interesting and fascinating, seeing this part of the world which I'd never seen in the past with the police, and seeing how that goes. But yeah.
Would you have had anything to do with the police previous to this? Because I didn't.
No criminal record, no nothing. I usually stuck within the black letter of the law. It's only been more recently where it's been a bit more like, might just push the envelope a little bit. But that's just because the laws got stupid. What's that saying? When laws become enemies of men, it's like the laws
You
like
have a moral, a moral responsibility to stand up when the laws are unjust. Something like that. It's famous. I think it's by Martin Luther King. Some sort of. But another question, though, just passing on, and then we'll go to some other stuff. How is your relationship with God gone from when you were just doing construction to now?
Oh, I'm in his hands. I'm very much in his hands still. Right from the time that I became a Christian, I've just been plodding along and constantly reaffirming the commitment that God, my life isn't my own. The very fact I was born at this time in history, the very fact that I was born into the country and the family that I was born in is a gift. And there's a saying in the Bible, he who much has been given, much will be expected. So I've often committed my life to God, saying, God, and I know it sounds weird, God, use me as a tool. I am your tool to get me from point A to point B. And I am just a cello player in your orchestra. And, whatever you want me to do to essentially further your plan, you let me know and help mold me, help give me the skills to do that. And so that's literally been the story of the last 10 years of my life. And so how has my faith changed? Well, it's grown stronger. I mean, I couldn't do all this. Everything that I've done, it could not have happened. I don't have the skills, the experience to have pulled this off. It's been an absolute blessing the way it's panned out. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes, God's used them to teach me a lot of very valuable lessons into the future, because this is not over. There's a lot more to come. And I need to learn as quickly as possible so that I don't stuff up again. If you make a mistake once, okay, whatever, learn from it and don't do it again. If you do it again, mate, shame on you. Shame on you. You should not be, wasting your time, everyone else's time. Society needs strong people and competent people. So learn as quickly as you can, as much as you can.
Yeah, it's extraordinary that way. Moving on though. Let's move to, you put a post up about, I think Morgan was in it, about the minor parties fighting each other and bickering over what do you call it?
Preferences.
Preferences.
Yeah.
Have your say to anyone in my community that doesn't want you. There's maybe
Right.
a few old ladies, but there's
Well, look. First off, the freedom community is a bunch of cats. All right, it's a bunch of cats that think they're lions, and hurting anyone that's owned a cat, hurting them from
Gotta
point
write that
A.
down.
Please write that down. Hurting cats from point. Yeah, a herd of cats that think they're lions. Now, herding cats from point A to point B is a difficult process. You can't take a photo of them; it's impossible, basically. But herding cats that think they're lions, they're so confident and blatant, and they're like, and I understand why they're like that. I do. You know, we've lost trust in the institutions. We don't trust anyone, and so they're going to be skeptical of everything. But sometimes it hurts them. Sometimes they're too skeptical, and so, you know, the post wasn't specifically targeted at Morgan. Morgan's just it's a bigger thing that's going on. It's everyone. This is why, in my opinion, we've seen a great big stagnation in the growth of the freedom movement. It's not just because of the fact that the lockdowns and a lot of the government measures have stopped. It's because this has become, and no one wants to say this. No one wants to say this. It's become a mean, toxic environment that it's not family friendly. It's completely gone off the tracks. It's not able to be mainstreamed, and I don't think, why would anyone hang out and hang around? I mean, just look at the comment sections of these posts. If you are not in 100% alignment and 100% puritanical in your beliefs, 100%, then it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And you know, we take these political parties as an example. You know, this came up because of preferences. Now, what are preferences? It's essentially where political parties, they, you know, when you vote, you number your ballot from 1 to however many people on the ballot. So maybe 1 to 8. Now, political parties, what they do is they go to each other and they essentially say, look, if you put me as number 2, I'll put you as number 3. And they start to barter, and they sort of work it out. And what's been happening over the course of the last few weeks is political parties have been having those negotiations. Not just freedom parties, which are the parties we like, but also the major parties. So they've all been talking with each other. Now, we always knew that freedom parties were going to basically not always preference each other. We always knew that. It's not new. You know, they've been doing this since the last election in 2019. In fact, in New South Wales, if all the freedom parties at that time had preferenced each other efficiently, that was equivalent to 1 Senate spot, but they didn't. And so about 10 months ago, I said to people at the end of 2021, hey guys, we've got local elections coming up in New South Wales. I'm going to come out with these how to vote cards to essentially let people know how our recommendations are to vote. This is going to solve a lot of problems, including political parties not preferencing each other when they are basically in alignment with everything. Now, it's so clear that all these freedom parties are aligned on the fundamentals. In fact, it's so clear that I even graphed it. Now, you can't see the specifics on this, but basically you can see a bar of green across there and then red. Now, the bar of green, that's all the freedom parties. There's about 10 of them. And the bar of red are the major parties. They don't agree on freedom of speech. They don't agree to never bringing lockdowns back. They don't agree that they'll, you know, the freedom parties will not, you know, bring mandates in, and they will not bring a bunch of other things in which have decimated us the last 2 years. So they all agree on that. So why won't they preference each other? I'm sure everyone's scratching their head. Well, it's because they are cutting deals with the majors to increase their chance of getting in. And I don't blame them. I actually don't blame them. It's politics, you know. It really is. And this is why
integrity and politics don't always go together. In fact, they rarely go together.
100%.
Integrity in politics is usually a poster.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And look, this is the thing. That's why I put a lot of time and my own money into building this project where we guarantee that on our recommendations, there are no freedom parties below the majors. You know, It's all freedom parties on top. So we've classified them for you. It's the major parties, and we've ordered the major parties in a way which will reduce the margin in the electorate. And then we put all the climate crazies and the white nationalists and the CCP funded people below the majors. So that's sort of the system how we did it. And when it comes to what people wondering, okay, if Joel could get that right, if they put the majors last, people could get that right. Why is it that these major parties can't get it right? Well, let me explain to you guys. The way it works is minor parties, they know where they're going to win, where their best chances are, and they know where they're going to lose. Now, if you think you've got a better chance at getting up in the upper house, the Senate, but not the lower house, you would be willing to sacrifice your preferencing on some of the lower house seats, which you don't really care about, for some Senate security to make sure you can get up in the Senate. So you might go to, one Freedom Party might go to the Liberal Party and say, hey, we want to put you higher up on the Senate. Can you do the same for us? And in return, we'll make sure that you get to secure this marginal seat in the lower house so that you can secure government. Because we'd rather work with you when it comes to getting, legislation passed in the upper house. We've got some things that we want to get through. Now those are conversations which happen, okay? And, if people don't want those conversations to happen, that's just not how government works. You can't be too puritanical. You've got to be somewhat flexible. And,
well, it's compromise, isn't it? Politics is all about compromise.
And that's democracy. And that's what Winston Churchill said. He says, democracy is the worst system out there, but he said it's a really terrible system, but it's the least worst terrible system. And so when it comes to the the outrage which I'm seeing from people as we started this segment from Morgan and from a bunch of others, it's not news. It's just not news. I mean, I get it if you're new to politics and you just checked in, but look, this is not a new thing. This has been done forever.
That said, to walk in someone else's shoes, you're into politics. Damien, who I used to do the show with, he's into politics, like you. The two of you, peas in a pot. Me, I've ignored politics my entire life. I've been in the theatre, I've been this. As far as I'm concerned, as long as the roads are fixed, as long as my bin's picked up, and as long as you stay the F out of my life, I'm happy. I know you're corrupt, but I don't care. And I know that sounds bad, but you're sort of taking this. Now, though, that's changed. It's been changing over the decades of suddenly you're telling me how to think, you're telling me how to speak, and now you're dictators. Now it's gloves off. And a lot of people, whether you have no respect for us, not a lot of people arrived here at this point of all different ages, and we're going, okay, so how does this work? And we are novices, but we are pissed off novices. So when we hear this thing about preferences, you say it clearly, but most of us go, I don't get it. I used to think branch stacking was like a bonfire. It just didn't interest me. Now I'm suddenly going, no, okay, we're here now, and now I'm traveling. I've been traveling. I say this a lot, but it's true. We've been on the road for 66 days now from Melbourne. We were on the road. I met you in Canberra, so we were in Canberra for 30 days. New South Wales coming down, so it's about 90 days altogether. And I'm traveling through the people. Not that the countryside is beautiful, but I'm traveling through the people, and you're traveling through a broken heart. And the people feel Australia has gone. All the myths are really important. I know that. I know when I was doing a playwright and I was going to country towns, traveling with our plays, people didn't know who they were. They thought they did. They were hanging on to these myths, but I knew it was hollow. You could feel that it was held up. Now we've had Christmas where families have ostracized family members. They've gone with fear over love. So Christmas, the whole myth of Christmas was wiped away. Then the other landmark was Anzac Day. Anzac Day. And I did this comment where I said those who had given up their freedom were free to attend a ceremony to celebrate those who had fought for our freedom, while those who are fighting for our freedom weren't free to attend. That was Anzac Day this year. And I've been introducing ex-servicemen who are not vaccinated. They are betrayed to their core. You know what I mean? They're just like so furious. And I really believe all the myths are swept away. I also believe this is an opportunity to go, well, okay, well, maybe now it's time to find courage to learn politics like you're teaching, like learning from you, and become the architects of a new Australia. Because at the moment, the only path they're offering us is tyranny. And I know even the best quote I heard was from this Romanian who said, what happens with the powers like Dan Andrews and all these others is they mistake compliance for enthusiastic support. And it's not. It's just compliance. They're scared. They don't want to fight. Most people don't like conflict. So it's that. And that's why suddenly they think they're in power, and then suddenly it changes very quickly, like we saw in Romania, like you see when these things fall. Anyway, I have no idea where I'm going with this anymore. It's just rambling on. But what I'm saying is this is where, so that's what I'm saying. This is where we are now. What you're doing is very important because we are waking up. And so what is to you not news, to us is. That's why when Bossy and the Cossack came out against UAP with preferences, everyone's going, what? And, it's like, what? And stuff like this. But let's go back to the freedom movement while we've got, because we're in it and we're both not political. It's like Hoodie. He's not running for politics. You're not running for politics. I'm not running for politics. I do support my friend Damien, but I'm not running for politics. I was at Canberra. You were at Canberra. We had this amazing epic camp. It was like, I'm going to say it. It was like God had said, if you want to fight for freedom, I want you to come here. Because I was doing lives of people coming up and going, I don't know why I came. I had to come. I just packed the kids in the car and I came from 2,000 kilometers away. That many people are not going to come from all over Australia to get the third booster. Never going to happen.
Yeah.
They came for freedom. Now, we were marching together. The march was quite extraordinary. I don't want to talk about the numbers because the press said there was 10,000. Our guys said there was millions and millions. I don't care. There was a lot of people. But when we got to the speeches, suddenly we have Bossy up there, and we got the Hoodie down here, and we got a swinging dick competition. In one of the most things that could have unified us all, suddenly they're dividing us, and people are going, I don't know which way to go. Hit this. What are we doing? And they wanted me to do a speech. I didn't want to do a speech. I didn't want to do a speech on that one. I didn't want to do a speech on this one. I was with you. I was just walking around interviewing people. And that's where I thought, what is going on? And I agree with you. We seem to have some people who are leaders who don't have the religious, I would say religious maturity to go, this is not just about me. I have a responsibility to a tribe, and I have to compromise and overcome my own ego in order to try cement this minority, in order that the minority can grow and we can save the future from the tyranny that we're heading into. That's my thoughts on it, And I do see it when these people attacking each other all the time. It does my head in. Don't do it in public. We don't need it.
Yeah.
We need to be unified. We need to be together. We need to be strong. And the people on the ground, the soldiers, wherever I go around Australia, I've been in like a farmhouse, like people invited me up to come to a farm in Ceduna. 60, 70 people turn up at this little farm. We're in this big shed. They're singing songs. They're doing things. We did a show live from there. Someone gave us all these white hats. I used to have a joke. I put them on and say, hey, Bossy, I found your white hats. They're in Ceduna. And here we are. But we're having fun. But this is people that didn't even know each other in the local community are coming together, and we all speak the one language. It's like we've known each other for ages because we're all on the same page. We all want the same thing. We want the tyranny gone. We want our freedoms returned. So the troops, I find it very united. But unfortunately, like you said, with cats
It's
an issue.
And that's the bad thing. When I was in Victoria for your November protests, I I first picked up on it, we all know that, you know, everyone wants to be the king of the hill and all that kind of thing. But I ended up seeing it firsthand in Victoria. Once you guys started cracking that 100K in terms of people that were getting there in November, that was when the real big problems started. And once it happened in Victoria, I remember being on the phone with people in New South Wales, all the organisers, said, guys, this is what I'm saying. Do not let it happen in New South Wales. A week later, it happened in New South Wales, and everyone started tearing each other apart. And the way I can see it is, this is what's going on for the people just watching. When you give power to people that have never had it in their life, they don't know how to deal with it, and often they abuse it. And so, a lot of these people that it's hard to see it. It is hard to see it because I work with a lot of these people every day. But when you give them some power, it gets to their head, and you know, they ended up. I understand exactly what's going through their head, but they've got to be able to let it go and understand they're a part of something bigger here. When there's great success, everyone wants a slice of it. Everyone wants to be the head of that 100,000 person protest or even 50,000 protest at town hall. But you've got to be able to let it go. It's not about you. It's about getting results for people.
That's it there. It's not about you. You just happen to be there. It's not about you. It's
Exactly.
so, and power corrupts. I know it does. And you do have people who've been powerless all their lives. Suddenly they're in a position of power. It is an extraordinary situation. It's happening everywhere. And but the other thing too that I think we can't discount is controlled opposition. I mean, we have other powers that be looking, hey, look at this group. I mean, in Melbourne, I think the biggest march we had in Melbourne was about 400,000. People said it was 700,000. I'm not so sure. But I was at these marches. And it doesn't matter. It was still a significant, huge amount of people. It was glorious. And it was almost like a moving church. It was like a group of people going, the churches are closed, our doctors have abandoned us, our institutions have abandoned us, our politicians are trying to oppress us, and we're moving forward going, we don't want this, but we don't know where we're going. And people, the most remarkable things were happening. Young people were holding up crosses. People were saying the Hail Mary on loudspeakers. No one cared. There's people that were religious, and I realized it's like a religious movement as well. And one young man was walking around with these crosses, and he was sticking in the face of the police, the crucifix. I just adored him. And I wrote a thing about him saying the rise of the spiritual warrior, and which did really well. And then I met him.
Yeah.
And I go, you. Oh my God, I've written about you. You're everywhere. And he's like, oh. And I said, what's your name? He said, Christian. I said, get out of here. Your name's Christian? And I wrote, Christian Warrior, your name's Christian. I said, what religion are you? He goes, I'm an atheist. I went, what? And he was brought up an atheist. And I was going, what? And he said, but when this all started to happen, he could see it for what it was. He goes, it's a spiritual war, and I've chosen the side of God. And there's pictures of this guy, lines of police, and there he is. He has nothing in his hand to defend himself with than this crucifix that he's putting up. He's beautiful. And he doesn't ask for any accolades. He doesn't do speeches. He just walks around with Jesus. And so I see great beauty and great courage in the things. So and I think that is the way to go forward, is to know that it's not about you. This is a spiritual war. You pick the side of God. You're one of his soldiers. Maybe you get to be a sergeant or a general briefly or whatever, but that's it. This is not about you. And I saw that at the shrine. When I was at the shrine, the cops were coming up going, who's the leader here? And they were coming up to us, older guys, and we're going, there's no leaders. This is not organized. This is just people wanting freedom. And we're just to come together. No one knows anything. And they couldn't figure out why there wasn't a leader. not organized. They just couldn't comprehend that it could just all these people here. No, we just went. All of us just went with the best idea of the time, and you were cackling in this direction, and now we're here. And we finally got here, and a few of us said, "We're not leaving. We're on the shrine of freedom. This is the monument built on blood.
Yeah.
We're staying."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's an interesting thing moving forward. Do you think, though, that there's other leaders yet to emerge? Because this is going to be a long, long, long fight. And I'm meeting them everywhere. I'll bring you up. I'm in York, a tiny little town in WA, tiny little town. One of those gold mine towns or whatever, thing. A little woman comes up to me called Monique, tiny little thing, like a Napoleon little figure. She has got the council setting up an alternative council, Friends of the Council. She's having a huge effect. She's been going around the town, getting all these people, hundreds of signatures. She's having a great, profound effect. In the suburb next to her, other people are doing the same. And all over WA, there's like 19 councils under attack from these ordinary people that are rising up. And all of them, the ones that are most successful, have a leader. Someone who inspires them. In the city of Perth, and if you get a chance to come, you will adore this. They have a guy called Lee, big man, used to be a firefighter. He does the umbrella people. I've written a lot about them. They stand outside the Governors Generals with the umbrella because it's hot, and they stand there every morning from 8 till 10. And there's hundreds of them, and they just stand there, and they have a few rituals that they do. But it gives you great courage, and it gives other people solace. That's why I'm saying, like, a lot of the people are saying the marches are getting quiet. But my saying, the reason you come is for solace. If you're feeling crazy, like the world's going crazy around you, and you feel sane, but it's like everywhere looks crazy. So maybe I'm crazy because the new sanity seems to be a lack of empathy. You come to these marches, and suddenly it's like a church.
It's therapeutic.
It's almost on a spiritual level. The people come up and they hug. They pat you on the back. They shake your hand. They go, "Thanks for coming." They call you brother, which I love.
Yeah.
They think, "Hey, brother, come in." And you're just like, oh, your soul can breathe. So I do think there's great hope, but I am with you. I am getting annoyed by certain people who I think are doing us a great disservice in a time where we need unity, definite unity.
Yeah, well, look, I'm a bit worried because I think sometimes I think so little of myself. I wonder where the other leaders are. Now, we haven't had many new leaders come up in the last 6 months. Why? I think it's because we're not growing that much. That's what I think. And I've told you why I think we're not growing, because we've become a toxic, mean community that's also got a tall poppy syndrome problem. Now, when it comes to...
But let's qualify that. Only at the top, though. That's what I'm saying, because I'm meeting these people. Lower down, and I would suggest you, if you leave and go to other places, you might have your soul refreshed by meeting people in towns you didn't know even had a resistance, and going, wow. Stand in the park in Topher and I were in Albury, Wodonga. He invited me up for a stand in the park. That was started by one man who for 4 or 5 weeks stood there by himself. No one came. Then there was 2, then there was 3. When Topher and I turned up, there was 500. And they were a community. Very, very different people. They came from both sides of the river. There is hope out there. But we have a public persona of people that I agree with you. The ones who have been the official leaders. I agree with you there.
And it's fine. It's fine. They can keep it up, but I just don't think they understand what we're up against. I really don't. I think that, if once you conceptualize how big a bloody task we've got ahead of us, then you might stop squabbling over scraps. I don't know what it is about minor parties and small groups of people, but they always squabble over scraps. I don't know why. When it comes to, like, they want to be the king of crap. You know, when it comes to the actual,
it's like a meme show.
it really is. It's my partner calls it
Right,
the Jerry Springer show.
I love it, the king of crap. But just
king
go
of
thing.
crap.
Let's go there. Let's just pull you up there, because you and I have never spoken like this before. We spoke at the march briefly, but there was so much going on.
Yeah.
What are we up against from your perspective?
Well, there's so many different things. Well, first off, politically speaking, we're up against a political establishment that not only gets, let's talk about one party, for example, the Liberal Party. They have $27 million in public funding from your votes from the last election. So that's how much they had in the bank. Then they also have all the political donors, all the big party and big company interests donating to them, millions of dollars, filling up their coffers. They've got a party infrastructure which allows them to call upon hundreds of thousands of volunteers around the country, all to fight an election. They're incumbent. They have people on every single level of government, and that's just one of the major parties. You know, the Labor Party, $24 million from the last election. They've got all the funding that the Liberal Party do, except it's traditionally from the unions. It's from, you know, big party interests as well, some big companies. And so, first off, on the political level, because that's how we're going to make change on a certain level, politically, that's what we're up against. And, you know, getting people mobilizing big amounts of capital and spending that capital efficiently, because there are people in this movement like Clive. For a rich guy, he doesn't know how to spend $200 million. He doesn't. You know, you need someone that's been in the political system a lot longer than Clive and understands exactly how to actually spend $200 million on a campaign level. You don't need $200 million. You need $500,000 if you know how to spend it on a seat, not $200 million, not like $1 million a seat. And so when it comes to, you know, the political, what we're up against, I don't think people understand how dire it is. People are talking about taking government this election. We're not taking government this election, guys. We're not. We'll be lucky if we get the foot in the door in the Senate. We'll be lucky if we got 4 to 5 Senate spots and we could hold the government accountable no matter who wins. Mate, we're doing well. We're doing very well. And maybe the following election federally, we can look at doing something. But people's expectations, they need to be brought right back down and say, guys, you know, we are not looking like a side that's about to win government. You know, there's no bloody way.
No.
What are we up against censorship-wise? And this is why I just say, look, all of you people online that have your little cliques of audiences and, you know, your little cult followings, including myself, I don't think you understand that this is a closing window. That censorship is always around the corner. It could strike at any time. It's the silent killer. You don't just get to tell your followers, "Oh, here you go." No, it's too late. You're gone. They've taken you out at the knees. And I've been writing about this topic since 2018. This is existential to your channels, to your followings, and
why? Okay, just let's go a bit deeper. Why the censorship? Because I agree with you. I mean, we've cafe locked out, and when I had a theatre company, I was boosting everything, and I think I got to 6,000 followers at one point, and I was raving, but it cost me a lot of money. Now I'm at 100,000 followers plus. I haven't spent a dime. I didn't think they boosted. They didn't show anybody, but I'm expecting every moment for it to be gone. We're always getting demonetized. We're always getting this. It's a miracle that we've survived, and we are doing other things to change that in the background and other ideas. YouTube, you fart near a computer, YouTube takes your site down. You know, and they don't even give you any warnings anymore. They go, "You're gone." You know, and then they say, "Oh, you put on a little thing." And then you put the thing to rumble, gone. It's so YouTube. Why the censorship from your perspective?
Oh, I mean, you know,
We've
why?
never
you know
seen
why?
Like this. Come on, say it.
You know why? It's because they don't like what you're saying. It doesn't suit the narrative. You know, they're just starting. The people at YouTube, the people in America, in Silicon Valley, it doesn't suit their values. Basically, you know, these people that they're often very, very rich, They've had a very privileged life. They went to one of the Ivy League universities. Rather than taking a job with one of the intelligence agencies, they've gone with, with Google, YouTube, Meta, Facebook and Instagram, Twitter. They go to these companies and they bring their values with them, the values which the universities have taught them. And anyone that knows what the term the long march through the institutions is, you understand that the universities are pumping out, basic socialists and communists. And once you realize that they're trying to strip you of all religion and all beliefs so that you can be controlled by the state and you adhere to a woke ideology, then you understand that these problems aren't just constrained to the universities. They go into the workforce. You see them in the HR departments. And then you see it in big tech. And the problem with big tech is it's not just America's problem. It's the world's problem. So now I'm getting held to account due to American standards. So I could be talking about are Australia's elections safe and trustworthy, and I'll get banned because they'll think I'm talking about American elections. And that's not the case at all. And like they ban on a bunch of different things. They don't like, people talking about January 6th. They don't like people talking about, a lot of the COVID stuff. They don't like people talking about, misinformation on certain topics like climate change. They're starting to demonetize channels which don't have the right narrative on climate change. It's all there. And yet, despite all of the establishment we are up against, people still want to F around and act like we have time to spare and resources to spare. We don't. We are always on a knife's edge. We are up against some of the absolutely best resourced people in the world, the most powerful engines. They've got AI working on how to hunt you down online and take out your accounts. Once people understand that reality, then maybe they'd stop fighting with the very people that share exactly the same damn values in the green section. And that's what annoys me.
Have you had your first what the F moment of the day? We call them what the F moments. It's when you wake up in the morning thinking, no, it's all a dream, everything's good. And then you hear something, and oh, that's what the F moment. I'll give you two what the F moments.
Sure.
One of my colleagues' grandmothers just got a 90-day ban for a post she put on Facebook 6 years ago.
No, you're kidding.
Algorithm went back 6 years. That's your first. This is a better one. I mean, if that's the case, I'm finished. Anyway, this is amazing. So I just like talking to people, ordinary people, about that's my thing. I just like it. And I meet this teacher who's lost her job, and she won't take the mandates. Now she's taking her kids out of school and she's homeschooling. The reason she took her kids out of school is her child in the 4th grade had a substitute teacher for the day. The substitute teacher gave them a lesson. They had to do a small childish essay, and the subject was why the government cares for them and why they must do what the government says. That was the essay in grade 4.
Wow.
I mean, even North Korea would go, no, we can't go that far.
They can't go that far. Isn't it obvious?
Come on.
Yeah.
No, the Chinese are going, come on, there's limits, man. And over here in Perth, this was staggering me. I'd heard about it, but I was actually shown the videos of it that the person doesn't want me to share. The police came into a church, Catholic church, while Mass was being served, shut the Mass down, and checked people's vaccine passports. And my communist parents who grew up in communism, they said the communists would never enter a church. They would never enter church anyway, but they would never enter a church while a Mass was being performed. And here they did. We are crossing such lines in the sand. And then the other thing over here and this is what I found out by traveling. I meet these independent journalists in Perth, lots of them. We've never heard of them because I don't think the algorithms allow their stuff to come across. St. Mary's Cathedral, this is a true story. St. Mary's Cathedral, they have a Singaporean priest, very pro. and he's urging, or basically telling, the people to go get their children vaccinated. The pop-up vaccination clinic was underneath the cathedral. They had to walk out, down a ramp, underneath the church. Some people started protesting, people probably like your father. They're doing the rosary on the grass. The security guards came and said, "You've got to get out of here. That's a protest." It's the rosary. The next week, so the story goes, 30,000 people blocked all the entrances to the cathedral in a protest. No one's heard about it. Christians blocking access to a cathedral. We are in extraordinary times, Joel. Times of unprecedented moments. We call them what the moments. On both sides, remarkably good, remarkably bad. And in amongst that time, whether people like yourself get to see the end, we need navigators. We need people who can go, "Look, I know you're getting crazy with this, I know you're getting crazy with this, but this is where we are right now, and this is where we're going, and this is where I think we should be going, and this is how we're getting there." That's why I think you're very important, how you get out with your clarifying it down. And the only source of the only real sort of guide for you to go by, and I'm happy to say it, and this is something 10 years ago I would have never said in my life, is God. There's a light. There's good. That's goodness. We head that way. No matter how hard, no matter if Jesus suffered, we have to suffer. That's it. But that's where we have to go, because we cannot leave our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, we never even thought of yet, this world. This world is collapsing on its own darkness and censorship and everything. We can't do it. And the truth is the only way, regardless whether it's painful to hear or not.
I said before that, I've been given a lot in life and had a lot of blessings, and as I said, he who much has been given, much will be expected. And the way I see it, take it, use it or lose it. Because if you don't use it, then maybe someone else needs the resources. If you're not going to play your part, then we need someone that's going to play their part. The show must go on with what we're going through in Australia, and there are certain people that have been given certain gifts, and the meaning of life is using those gifts and using it in a positive way, in a constructive way, not a destructive way. What I see from a lot of these personalities, I've worked with all of them, is destructive when it comes to the end outcome. If you've got a grievance with one of these minor parties, can it wait? Can it wait till after the election? Is that possible? Because all you're doing is demoralizing.
Does it have to go public?
Exactly. Does it have to go public? See, whenever I have a problem with someone, I generally take it privately. And that might sound hypocritical, because like, why didn't you do it this time, Joel, with Morgan? Because it's not just Morgan that's doing this. It's everyone. It's everyone in the comment sections, up and below. Because a lot of people in the comment sections, they're falling into this trap of attacking each other. Guys, this is exactly what the establishment wants, but no one's getting paid to do it. You are tearing each other apart. I just saw an ad for the UAP. It was attacking One Nation directly. It took a quote out of context of Pauline Hanson in the debate which was held between her and the Mavericks, and it was completely out of context. And so we see it happening on a party level. We see it happening on a candidate level, and even on a commentator level with people like Morgan. And then we see it happening, on the ground level, percolating into the comment section. And that's the average people. And it's either going to enrage people or it's going to demoralize them. And this is not the time to be demoralized. We are a week out from the election. In about a week and 12 hours, we're going to know who's going to run the lower house in this country, ScoMo or Albo. We won't know who runs the Senate until a week after the election, so 2 weeks from now. Now, what should we be doing? It's pretty simple. There's actually not that many things. There's 2 or 3 things we should be doing. First off, We should be getting our vote absolutely right. We should be making sure we understand how we're going to vote. Now, if you don't know how to do that, you look into the people in your area. If you don't know how to do that, we've got how to vote cards, which recommend the best way to vote for freedom to get us out of this thing. If you don't like the freedom parties that we've put on top, just reorder the freedom parties and that's it. But other than that, I'd leave it the same. Secondly, it's not enough just to vote. Our candidates need bloody help. They need it, and they need it like yesterday.
That's right. Let's do that. This is the thing. We need volunteers.
Yes.
They need hundreds of volunteers. And you don't have to be vaccinated to be a volunteer for this thing.
That's right. That's right.
We just need your time. Get on the
this.
things.
This is some context for you, Michael. How many volunteers? In every electorate, you need about 200 volunteers for election day, maybe more. Every electorate, there are 151 electorates. So if you're a party, I know not all parties are doing this, but if you're a party that's running an election in all seats, you need 24,000 volunteers around the country. Now, that sounds like an impossible task, but this is the price if we don't do that. If we don't. The major parties will get back in. We will be, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. They're going to get back into government and we're not going to represent. A lot of people have been overestimating the size of the freedom community and I've hated it. I've hated it. You know, you said it before. The biggest protest you had in Victoria was probably 400,000. Some were saying 700,000. Some were saying 1 million. Now, I never thought that. I never thought that the freedom community was that big. I always understood that the freedom community was maybe 1 to 2 million people around Australia in total. Mm-hmm. There is still 23 million people out there that are untapped, and they all make their decision up, most of them, before they go into the polling booth in many cases. So if you're not representing on the polling booth, if you're not handing out how to vote cards for your favorite freedom party, we're screwed. We're screwed. And this is the thing. We know exactly how to win elections. We know exactly how to do it. We've just got to do it for a week. So pre-polling's open. Pre-polling's open now. It's where people can vote early. There are 2 to 4 polling places open per electorate. Very easy to man. You probably only need about 20 volunteers a day. Very easy. Election day, different story. There's anywhere from 30 to 50 polling booths open. And you need about, probably 4 volunteers, maybe more, 4 to 8 volunteers for that polling booth. We're talking hundreds of people. That's a lot of people. Like, if we can muster, 300,000 people at Canberra from around the country, we should be able to man every polling booth always. We should be able to do it. But instead, what's happening right now is we're looking, and I'm going to say it, we're looking like the losing side, guys. We're seeing a situation where the candidates are calling me up. They're absolutely devastated that they're on their own and they can't get the volunteers out there to help them. Now, there are protests happening right now as we speak, Michael, today.
I'm going to one today, yeah.
And good on you. And any organizer I've talked to, any organizer I've spoken to, I've said, if you don't plug the volunteers we need volunteers for these candidates they're yelling down the phone to me. They're struggling. Some of them are in tears. If you don't plug the fact that they need volunteers, then that protest was useless. Absolutely useless. It doesn't matter if you sweat 2 years to work out how to perfectly preference your card. There's another 23 votes out there to cancel your vote out for every 1 vote in the freedom community. We've got so much work to do. But no, instead, everyone wants to attack each other. Everyone wants to act like we don't have an election on. And everyone wants to act like, it's all going to be hunky-dory in 2 weeks when we have a completely new government. No, this is the final sprint. Now is the moment. And, I've done everything I can to educate people over the last 2 years. We've all been trying to get people up to speed on why things are going on. But we've provided how to vote cards. We've provided, people with experience about how to actually, watch out with the ballot counting, watch out with what's going on with, with the infighting with the major parties. Now is the moment to put all of that understanding into action in this 1 week. We're up against an establishment that is well-funded. They pay $200 a day per volunteer to man the polling booths. We don't have that. Our people, they do it out of their own, they believe what they're actually saying. They're not being paid to be out there. But that is why they will lose eventually, because they do not have the courage of their convictions. We do.
Right.
And that's why we'll stick at it. And but this is the thing, Michael.
Well, let's go there just for a sec, because I have a saying that because when you're on the road and you're talking to people, you get time to think. You obviously think yourself. And I came up with this thing that if we continue to go with the flow, then everything we love about this country will drown. And that's what I'm seeing. Yeah. And I hear, I'll mention it today, the thing too. But can I just say, and since we're here together, that I believe you're right. I don't want to sound like a quitter, but I think we have to brace ourselves for after the election, where you're saying time out. And it's going to be really interesting, and not in a cheery, let's celebrate way, what will happen. It's
well, part of that is, and everyone needs to remember this, we're going to have bad news on election night. All right? We're going to have bad news. All right? The reality is going to be that we're running these candidates in the lower house around the country, and we probably won't get any of them up, except maybe Bob Katter. Even Craig Kelly will lose his seat. People don't understand how dire this is. Like, I don't think they get it. It's very difficult to win a lower house seat, because the way it works is it's 151 seats. They all represent 100,000 people. So they've split us up. We're all split up. But that's why we're going to see the greatest success in the Senate, because the way the Senate works is it's by state and territory, and all the votes in the state, they get added up together. So we can get some Senate spots up there, and maybe even enough to form the balance of power in the Senate. So it doesn't matter if we don't get the lower house. We can veto any legislation, no matter who forms government, and stop them. That's what the hope is. That's what keeps driving me and people like Topher. That's where the real fight is. But you have to run lower house candidates so that you can get votes for the Senate. Who knows? Maybe we'll have some miracle wins in the lower house. And that's great. There's some great people in my area who I've been backing. There's some great people in the Hunter Valley. They have a very good chance.
Great people everywhere. I've been interviewing lots of them. There's great people everywhere. They are, though, naive. Yeah. They really are naive, even though they're running. But they have the passion. Maybe the next election, if they come back again, they'll learn. But it's not wasted, Michael. It's not wasted. The people that ran in the Hunter election last year, so that's in Sydney. It's probably one of the most winnable electorates for freedom parties. It happened to be One Nation that ran in the last election. A guy named Stuart Bonds, he ran. He came in just as number 3. He almost beat the Nationals guy. If he beat the Nationals guy, he could have actually won the whole seat. Now, because of how hard he worked, this election, One Nation was given an equal platform in that seat to Labor and Liberal. They were on the debate stage. They were debating the other candidates. It's a different candidate this time, but even though it's a different candidate, still, they're treated equally. Now what we're doing this election is we are quantifying the size of the freedom movement, and that's going to be very valuable for the next election. But the reason why I say election day, we need a brace for a hit, is because that's not when the real win's going to come in. It's not going to come in till a week or two after, when the Senate results come in. That takes a lot more time to count. But there's still state elections too. Dan's up in November, and I'm thinking there. And I think there's even I was telling Damien, everything you're doing now, if you don't get federally, it can all come across, and we can learn the lessons from the federal one and take it to the state. I know McGowan's got a while. It's an interesting time. I don't want to say, I don't like saying things that I have no knowledge of, but I do think our hope isn't on our side. I think a lot of our hope lies in our best recruitment officer, which is the booster and the 4th shot. As in Israel, people don't want them. They don't understand them. Even the most ardent supporter of the government going, well, I've had two, and I've been sick every time. They want me to take a third one and a fourth one. And people are stopping, and more. Everyone knows now. We were at a sort of get together recently, and I said, hands up who knows people who've died of COVID. No one put their hands up. I said, hand up who knows someone's had an adverse reaction. Every single person put their hand up. So I do think with there, and what I do say to people is we cannot discriminate. There's things like going around with pure blood on. You can't use pure blood. What we have to do is like the prodigal son. These people went there. They trust the government. Now they're not so sure. We have to be going, well, come and join us. And maybe together we can change things. And I think I'm with you. I think it's a long, long fight. I'd love a miracle that suddenly we did sweep into power in the upper house and we had thing. But yeah, even though I try to be an optimist, I think we better batten down the hatches.
Well, let me be optimistic. I am optimistic, right? We all need something to run on, and I am optimistic. I just want people to put it in the right direction, and I'm trying to light a fire under people's butts so they get activated, because we can make a difference in this week. Most people haven't voted. Most people, absolutely, most people haven't voted. There is still the opportunity there, but for every day that ticks by and we don't have these polling booths being manned and our candidates are getting worn out, the other guys are manning the polling booths diligently. That's the point. But this is the thing. This is what I think is going to happen this election, despite where we are right now. I think we're going to see one, definitely, Freedom candidate get up in Queensland. Probably Pauline Hanson. Maybe two, because she's actually gotten a very good preferencing deal with the Liberal Party. I think we're going to definitely see one in New South Wales, because we almost got one in the last election in New South Wales. So that's three so far. I think we're going to have a fourth one in terms of Victoria. I reckon you probably get the Liberal Democrats up. And then in Tasmania, I reckon Topher Field might actually get up as well. And then maybe we'll see one in WA. So we're looking at possibly 6 senators that get up around the country. And then we've already got a senator in Parliament already, which is on our side. We've got Malcolm Roberts from One Nation. We've got Senator Rennick, who's from the Liberal National Party. And we've got Senator Antic. So now we're looking at, 9 senators possibly in the upper house. That could be enough to actually hold the balance of power very securely. Now, that's the good news. That's where the fight's at. But this is the thing. If we don't run candidates in the lower house, we don't get Senate spots. That's the reality. And I am very optimistic about where things are going into the future. I really am. And as you said, even if we don't have the greatest...
I am optimistic for the future. I just think it's like traveling through the dark to reach the dawn. I just think the dawn is still a way off. But I do think we'll reach there. Because
me too.
as a Chilean guy said to me, this human soul yearns for freedom, craves for freedom, and will go that way. So I do think we will. I actually think ultimately our culture will benefit from it, because we'll finally reach a platform once we've gone and go, okay, now we're a country. Now we fought for freedom. This is our freedom. We're going to be better than we used to be. So I think it's the fight of our lives. So I do have, but at the moment we might lose a few battles on the way.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think that, after this election, I'm encouraging everyone to have a bit of a break. I really am. When it comes to the COVID stuff, I actually think we're having an extended break from this stuff. I don't think they're going to go that hard on it until after the elections in Australia. And the after the elections isn't just this one. It's not even just the Victorian one in November. It's the New South Wales one in March next year. So we've got a couple of them. And so the day after the election, I'll probably take a week off from this stuff. And then I'll be straight into planning for Victoria's election. It's not that I'm being a dictator and telling people how they should vote in Victoria. It's that I'm giving Victorians the resources to fight the battle that they haven't been able to fight in the past. You've got no problem protesting, but politically speaking, a lot of people are disarmed and they need the tools to fight it. So on a state level, yeah. Totally
agree. Well, I'd love to help with that. I totally agree. There's most of my people watching are based in Victoria, like 75%. So if I'm still on air. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up now and go. It's been joyous.
No, it's been my pleasure.
Bigger fan now than I was before.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well-dressed man walking through all these hippie people marching in the Southern Highlands. Is well-dressed, quite tall. People don't realize he's quite tall, walking through, doing his live streams with this. It's been a pleasure, Joel.
The pleasure's all mine. Thanks for making this happen, and I'm glad we finally did do it.
Yeah, and I'll air this tonight. This will be our show tonight. I'll air it tonight when coming on. Okay.
Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
See you, Michael. Thanks so much. Ciao.
Bye.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. He has sounded for the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He's sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul.